Hello, and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success podcast. If it sounds like I'm laughing, I'm kind of chuckling. We were cracking up about something in the green room. We were putting together our notes for this podcast, and I'm really excited to talk about endorsements from celebrities and professionals and all the things, because it's definitely a hot topic. But we were putting together our notes and we were just kind of cracking up. Not that it's a funny topic necessarily, but sometimes
some of them are challenging because, I think this is actually, Penny, a perfect example of why we did that fun show recently about things that we don't always approach in the same way, or things that we've disagreed on. Because, Penny showed up like, yay, about this. And I'm like, okay, I'll find some positive things to say. Because this is a challenging process. And, and a lot of our topics come from challenges we see our clients and authors go through. So they really do come from places of like, let's be constructive about something that we know is either hard to figure out or challenging for authors or just people plain hate to do it. You know what I mean? So we try to put a positive spin on some things that maybe y'all don't always want to talk about or hear about. But I think this is an exciting one because everybody wants endorsements.
Well, and I think that I used to do a lot of celebrity endorsements. Years ago. But the challenge with celebrity endorsements, and I know we're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit on this, but the challenge with celebrity endorsements is that they get so many requests, right? So I stopped doing them because I kept telling authors, I'm like, the only reason that you're really hiring me is just to chase them down and to, contact them again and again and again and again. And really, the more persistent that you can be, the better your chances are for getting an endorsement. And I mean, years ago, I had an author and it was some women's conference. I can't remember. It was in San Diego, but Candace Bergen was speaking. She was like one of the keynotes. And one of my authors really wanted to get an endorsement from her. So I actually followed Candace Bergen off the stage. And I started following her to the green room. And of course, all these people in the backstage, whatever security, they were like, ma'am, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I just wanted to chat. I just wanted to give this to Candace Bergen. I mean, here I am like 23, 20, whatever, 24 years ago. I'm fresh off of, the fresh off the farm. Like I literally just popped, started my business. I'm like, I'm going to get an endorsement of Candace Bergen. Instead, I nearly got arrested. But I did. I did get the book in. I mean, I handed the book to somebody. I'm like, could you give this to Candace Bergen? I don't know if it wound up in the trash or she ended up getting it anyway. So that's the portion of our podcast. That's what not to do to get a celebrity endorsement. Don't follow people off the stage. Because especially nowadays, they'll just put you in jail overnight. And that's
right.
That's
no
not
questions
really,
asked.
That's not really an attractive social media post update. Hey, I missed my book signing because I'm in jail. But I think that, so the first piece of this is, and Amy, I want you to dig into kind of the points that we talked about for you too, because I'm going to talk a little bit later kind of about the package. But I think the first piece of this is you have to kind of ask yourself why you're getting these endorsements. And this is one that I get a lot, is an endorsement from Reese Witherspoon, which it's kind of, Amy saw her picture. Isn't she endorsing yogurt now or something? Is she?
Oh my gosh. Reese's book club is on the top of We Yogurts, like on the tin. And I'm like, I don't get it unless Reese at one point said in some interview that she likes that yogurt or something. Because otherwise I'm like, I love a creative endorsement concept or, collab concept. But I'm like, I'm not getting the book club and the yogurt. Like I don't.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not seeing the direct tie, but apparently, I'm sure We sales are off the charts. So good for them.
Well, but I think that, one of the things so endorsements are not easy to get. They're not impossible, but they're not easy to get. The first piece of this is there has to be some kind of a product match. So, and by product match, I mean, there has to be something, there has to be some connection to your book. So an example is we worked with an author and she has a couple of trivia books on 80s music. Right. And they're great and they're super fun. So she did some bag stuffers for a celebrity golf tournament. And One of the guys from Earth, Wind and Fire, right? I love Earth, Wind and Fire, was there. And so she and I did a call about, she really wanted to get an endorsement. And I said, well, you're going to need to just ping all of these people on social media and just say, hey, I just wanted to make sure you saw the book, you liked the book. Let me know what you thought, blah, blah, blah. And as it turns out, now she's in a whole conversation with this guy from the band and getting maybe doing some stuff together and getting endorsements. So you have to be you really kind of have to be pushy. And I think that's part of the reason why I used to love doing endorsements. Not that I'm proud of being pushy, but but I am kind of pushy. I'm a little bit like a dog with a bone, right? So so you do, you have to find the match, but then sometimes, I mean, and like I said, we'll talk about the package a little bit later, but sometimes it takes more than just sending your book off with a tidy little letter and asking them to read it and write something really cool that you can put on the cover of your book, right? Um, Amy, what's the one thing that you get a lot when you're dealing with authors for endorsements? What's the first thing that authors say to you?
I think the biggest concern is whether or not they should hold off on publishing their book.
Yes. Thank you.
So I win. But yeah, truly, it happens a lot. We'll start working with an author. They have a timeline. They've got, and typically these people are very organized anyway. Not that you have to be, but I will say a lot of the authors that are on the endorsement track, whether it's from another professional in their industry, another big time author in their genre, or a celebrity or something like that, they usually have a lot of moving parts. Like these are ambitious people.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a lot going for them already. But to emphasize how much this can derail, like these people who have everything going, they've got a timeline, they've got all the stuff, and then all of a sudden they're questioning all of it because those endorsements haven't come through yet. Well, should I hold off? Should I push back my publishing date? Should I you know what I mean? All this stuff all of a sudden is in question. It's like, whoa. Like you had an amazing plan going here. Like all these other things, all these other T's and I's are getting crossed and dotted. But then the endorsement thing really tends to throw people for a loop, and they consider changing everything just for the prospect of something coming through, that's not even a sure thing, which can get very dangerous territory.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, and the other piece of it though, too, is that it does take, I mean, so I would not hold off on publishing your book to get these endorsements, because I had endorsements that I used to do that took, I think the longest one took a year. And I was actually surprised it came through that quickly. So not to discourage you from getting endorsements, I think that's great. But the best way to get an endorsement is not necessarily to send them something cold, right? So the cold open for an endorsement takes a lot longer. Now, if you're wanting to get a professional endorsement from somebody in the industry, I mean, follow them, buy their books, comment on their blog. I mean, that's
follow them on social media, not off the stage.
Right. Yeah. Don't follow them. Try to follow them to the green room. Thank you.
Don't follow them to dinner. Don't follow them home.
I'm so certifiable sometimes. But yeah, I mean, you really, you want to make the connection somehow with them.
Yes.
Through, follow them on social media, follow them, different places. Now, if it's a celebrity that you want to go after, there used to be a site called Who Represents, and now they charge, I don't want to say it's like $13 a month to get their information. But celebrities are more accessible now because of social media. And sometimes, I mean, yes, a lot of times their people manage their social accounts, but sometimes they get their own, sometimes they get their own private messages like on Instagram and things like that. I don't know about all the time, but I think sometimes you can reach out to them at least that way and find out what the protocols are for sending something for endorsement consideration. And in some cases, celebrities may charge for those endorsements, which is a little, I find as somebody who has chased endorsements previously, I find that to be really discouraging. Like you either like it or you don't like it anymore if I send you $30,000. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Right. I find that to be, I mean, if somebody would say, Penny, I'll give you $30,000 to endorse my book, it's not like I wouldn't cash the
I
checks.
was going to say, I can like a lot of things for 30 grand, Penny.
I mean,
Let's not generalize here.
let's just be clear, right? But at the same time, it does get to be a little bit, discouraging. But I think the first piece of this is you want to build those relationships. And sometimes, like in the case of the gal who put her book in the gift bag for the celebrity golf tournament, the sometimes the endorsement, sometimes that connection comes a little bit secondhand in that case, right? The other thing that I told her when I was going down this list, and this is a situation, so I have a neighbor, it's really funny. It's kind of like when people know that I speak Dutch, like they assume that I speak 80 other languages or something. Like they're like, oh, this person speaks Mandarin. Can you translate that? I'm like, no, I'm not, I just speak like, right? But so I have this neighbor, and this guy's like, oh, you do marketing. Can you help me with such and such? I'm like, no, I can't. But anyway, so he was working for a company and starting like a supplement thing, and it was a faith-based supplement company or something like that. Anyway, so I said to him, I said, go after, since he has this, it's like a patriotic something. I didn't really get the whole thing actually, but the elements that he had about it being tethered to faith, being tethered to patriotism, and all this other stuff, I said, go after the actors from the Hallmark Channel. Like, I know that sounds really crazy, right? And you're like, oh my God, the Hallmark Channel. But let me tell you that, first off, they're very receptive to endorse. I mean, you know, um, supplement endorsements is obviously a different thing, right? You have to really want to take, like what's in this thing, like, you know what I mean? Like that's a whole different thing. But my point being is that sometimes it's easier to get endorsements and to build on them. So I told him, I said, and in fact, also because a lot of soap opera people, and we've worked with two of the major soaps that are actually still on the air. And this, hence why I know this, soap opera people are also very easy to get to, which is a little surprising. And I realize that soap operas are kind of a dying breed, but my point being is that it's going to be harder to go straight to Reese Witherspoon to get your endorsement if you don't have the endorsements. But it's a lot easier to get bigger endorsements if you start with the more gettable get. Does that make sense, Amy?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
we talk about that being the case with a lot of other media and things like that as well, and genre influencers and things like that. Nothing is it's all great coverage, and people want to like what other people like. It's that proof. It's that adding to your resume.
Right, exactly. And again, not to be like Hallmark Channel obsessed, which I do get once fall hits, just I'm totally MIA.
I was going to say, we're only 6 or 8 months out. You're fine.
I know. But he called me the other day and he said, oh my God, I went onto Instagram and I reached out to a couple of, he goes, my wife knew all the movies and highlighted all the actors and stuff that I should go after. And he kind of shrugged. He's like, yeah, a lot of them were guys. I'm trying not to take that personally, which was kind of funny. But so a lot of the actors that he reached out to that were connected to Hallmark shows or movies or whatever actually got back to him almost right away. And they were managing their own Instagram accounts and stuff. So the point being is that I'm not necessarily saying all of you need to go after Hallmark Channel people, but don't necessarily always go for the fruit that's the highest on the tree. I realize that's appealing, but sometimes.
Oh, was that a pun?
Oh my gosh, I made a pun. I made a funny.
This show is so off the rails. I love it. I live for these ones.
So you should also know that, and y'all need to write Amy and tell her like super kudos. We're also recording this show in the middle of a big tornado situation at her house. So Amy is like the postal service. Like she just shows up, man. She just like shows up. I think that's awesome.
We will die laughing.
Yeah, hopefully not literally, but yes. But so anyway, kind of my point was my pun, which was not actually intentional. So I'm basically just funny whether I want to be or not. But my point is that, going after, even like Amy and I listen to a ton of true crime podcasts. And if I wrote a book and we had actually somebody reach out to us. It was so exciting. We had somebody reach out to us this week who has a true crime book potentially. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to this person, but you know, if I were getting endorsements for that book, it depends on the book a little bit too, and the author and sort of their background. But generally, I probably wouldn't go after Keith Morrison right away, but I might, because he's going to be much harder to get to. And you know that everybody with a true crime book is probably going after this guy. But there are so many true crime shows on iTunes that you could just really start populating your endorsement list. And one of the best ways to get the bigger names is to get more of the other names. So
Mm-hmm.
Amy, talk a little bit more about so a lot of authors just want to, part of the reason that they're holding off publishing their book for the endorsement is because why?
Well, most of the time, and this is, the big thing is that they want to be able to put that endorsement on their book cover,
Yeah.
which there's absolutely, I mean, I get why that's appealing, but it's also a little antiquated considering how many books are bought online now. Sadly, most people are not standing in a bookstore holding a book in their hands and experiencing that cover the way that we used to, even 10, let alone 20 years ago,
Yeah.
flipping it over, reading the back cover copy, reading the endorsements, things like that. So getting endorsements specifically for your book cover is actually a little short-sighted in today's market. There's really so much more that you can do with an endorsement long term. You can, yeah, I mean, the list could go on forever, but all the pitching you do, those endorsements are going to be critical. Your book description on Amazon, I mean, really anywhere, social media, your website, like everything that you do, all aspects of your brand can include these endorsements. And so holding off, stopping the train for the book cover aspect of it, try not to fall into that trap. If you are looking for endorsements, if you are sending letters out, making those connections, remember to think about all the different things you can do with them. So it is always going to work into your overall long-term plan when those finally come through. So don't limit yourself on a timeline.
Right. Right. I think that's a really smart, because if you're holding off on your book until let's just say hypothetically for a year, I mean, that's some time that your book can start to gain some momentum. And that's another piece of it that I think is worth mentioning too, is that if you're right out of the gate, if you're a new author and you are wanting to get all these endorsements and you're just now building your platform, it's going to be a much bigger uphill climb to get endorsements before your book is even out than it is for somebody who already has a few books out and has some platform and things like that, which is another reason why there's no reason that you can't wait until your book has been out for a few weeks and started to build a little bit of a head of steam on Amazon. You've gotten some reviews, things like that you start to kind of go after the endorsements, because it's also more attractive. The other issue to take into consideration too is that there are so many books published, right? There are so many books published now in this country and celebrities know this too, that you really, you have to really make the case professionally why they should, and what the connection is, why they should endorse the book. And this includes a professional package. Now, one of the things that I used to do, which is going to make me sound older than dirt, is so we'd send the book or the galley. I would send pre-written endorsements, which I highly recommend that you still do, pre-write them. And, because if somebody wants me to endorse their book, for example, and I'm always flattered when they do, if they send me a list of 3 or 4 endorsements that, pre-written, I can either use them verbatim, I can edit them, right? But it makes it easier for me. And that's really what you want to do, is you want to make it easier for your person, who you're targeting, to send that back. So we just send a packet, and it would be a FedEx, right? And we'd send the book, and we'd send a return envelope for the endorsements, or a fax number, which again makes me sound older than dirt, but and that would be kind of the package. And then we FedEx it out and then follow up, and then we'd probably end up FedExing 5 more. So because they would lose them or whatever. Now in this day and age, you can send a link to a book funnel file that they can grab or whatever. So it's a lot different now, but what still holds true is that you want to send it with pre-written endorsements, and you may want to write up 20 or 25 or something. So, because if you're targeting a lot of people, you're not overlapping. So you're not getting two identical endorsements from people. You're like, oh, how am I going to use this?
Oh God.
But the other thing that I also recommend is get them to sign off on something. So whether it just initial it or something like that, you just want to have something in writing so that, because if they're really busy and they're going to come back like, I don't really remember writing this endorsement for this, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I mean, you just really want to cover yourself, especially if you're going after somebody who's a little bit bigger. And like I said, give yourself some time and consider all of the opportunities for, maybe you have another author that you've really admired their work and you want to get their endorsements. Start to follow them on social media, start to comment on their posts, buy their books. You know what I mean? Introduce yourself to them before you show up with the ask, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. I
So
think that networking aspect is so smart, Penny, because bonus, if you get used to doing this for endorsements, it's going to make your pitching that much better as well across the board.
Yeah. 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 And I think that I hope that this podcast has inspired you to want to do, go after those endorsements and things like that, just because it's always, people like what other people like. So having them is great. Getting them in time for your book launch may not always be possible. As Amy said, don't hold off on, publishing your book. But definitely, I think one of the biggest secret ingredients to getting a lot of endorsements is really just persistence. You have to really be willing to stay after it and don't get discouraged if they lost your email or they lost your book or whatever, because at some point, the more you persist, the more that you'll find that you get, that you get a good outcome. Or in the case of the author with the 80s book, now she's BFFs with somebody from Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I'm super jealous. But anyway. Well, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. This is Penny Sansbury and Amy Cornell, and we love a review wherever you listen to podcasts, or you're welcome to email us your review. We also love show ideas, so send us your show ideas and forward the show to a friend. Copy the link to the show and send it to a friend who you think could learn a lot from the 4 years that we've been doing this podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.